Textures exist everywhere.
They're the very fabric of life. Whether country folk or urban dwellers, the textures affect our subconscious feelings and worldviews. This is no less important for the artist, for textures are some of the most important elements an artist works with. Whether tactile or visual, textures strongly affect the feelings of the artist's paintings. In painting, we can think of texture as being about surface, the tactile or sensuous feel of the surface. The range of the texture can go all the way from flat and smooth to very rough.
Texture can be a rendered version of the external world, or created simply for the painting, with physical or visual textures that stimulate feeling.
Some of the most beautiful and texturally replete works of art come from the art of the Africans. Their oftentimes rough-hewn textural qualities are natural byproducts of the environment, the materials, and tools they use. The art of the indigenous peoples of North America is another type of art which has texture as a main emotional ingredient.
Vincent van Gogh's paintings were filled with texture. His masterpieces of the late 1800s brought textural usage to a new level. His application of thick paint with small brushes set a precedence that freed the boundaries of texture and gave wings to all art that was to follow. Yet before Van Gogh, in the wake of the Renaissance, while most other artists were trying to hide their paint quality, the artist Rembrandt used a thick layering of paint to create a lavish and sensuous textural feel. He used glazing on top of a thick impasto paint and created shimmering surfaces that seemed almost alive. In addition, Rembrandt's innovative and pioneering efforts with texture was arguably one of the most important beginnings of personal expression in Western painting.
It's the natural mystic, which you might say is the natural child. It's the natural human being, the essential human being, who lives in this realm of what I call the source, lives in the source. Well, it's like listening, Dick. But if you change the image from tap into to listening, to receiving, rather than tapping into, to receiving, to being empty, to listening, so that the impulse has some place to enter.
Many years before Van Gogh's innovations, because of the invention of oil paint, which allowed the process, the artists of the European Renaissance were mainly interested in replicating or rendering things from the real world, from the external world, from the world outside our skin. Their goal was to suggest the textures of things visually, without actually making physical texture. It was the idea of hiding the paint quality, of creating the illusion of reality.
The illusion of texture.
Naturally, this included the textures of the things they observed, of the objects before them. This idea was revolutionary in its time and established a tradition, a new approach to expressing texture.
The idea of visual texture is to create a textural feel, but without the use of thick paint, without the three-dimensional element. It's similar to the idea behind Renaissance art of creating images and textures and hiding the paint quality. But with this approach, it's not so much about painting textures in a realistic way, but inventing textures with expressionism, abstraction, or non-representationalism. Of course, the paint quality is important in all paintings, but with the visual texture approach, thick paint is avoided while creating a strong textural feel. This Max Beckmann painting elicits a feeling of slick shininess. In this painting, Morris Louis creates a visual texture using poured paint. Yet the feeling of texture is not done with thick paint, but with smooth, flat paint. Physical texture has to do with actually using three-dimensional elements, elements that have physical thickness. This can mean collage of some type, or actually using thick paint. There is some evidence that the indigenous peoples of North America were the first to use three-dimensional elements and collage in their artwork. Yet as far as collage in the fine arts, in the Western tradition, most people understand that Picasso was the originator of using physical three-dimensional painting as we understand it today. It was around 1912 when Picasso began to use collage. Picasso's approach was about gluing pieces of paper and sometimes objects to the painting. This shocked people in Picasso's day, but was the beginning of physical three-dimensionality in painting. After Picasso, Kurt Schwitters took the use of collage to a higher level. In the mid-1900s, Julian Schnabel and Jasper Johns also used physicality or physical texture in painting. Schnabel actually glued plates to his paintings. In this painting, Anselm Kiefer, an artist of the late 20th century, continues the exploration of physicality or physical texture in painting. In this painting, Kiefer collages pieces of straw onto the painting. In this painting, the artist Wayne Thiebaud uses thick, buttery paint. In this painting, he does the same thing with pinball machines.